Now I can see. Okay, we're in progress. Go ahead, Ryan.
Good to go. All right, great. Well, thank you everybody for coming out and everyone getting this together. You did a great job. I'm glad to present. We have our Diversity and Sport Management Alumni panel tonight. We have a lot of great alumni members from the Cortland family. We welcome you guys, and thank you for taking some time out to come speak to us. Our moderators today will be Lima Stafford and Anna Maria from the Diversity and Cultural Office, MLDO, and I'll hand it over to them for the rest of this. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all for joining us. I'm really excited that our alumni are able to come out today. So once again, my name is Lima Maria Stafford. I'm currently the Assistant Director for Multicultural Life and Diversity. I'm a proud SUNY Cortland alum, class of 2012. I actually started out sports management, but I switched to kinesiology and then I went to phys ed to finish my program. But I love my journey at Cortland, but without further ado, I'll just pass it on to Anna Maria to introduce herself. Then we're going to introduce the panelists.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm excited to be with you all here tonight. And thank you again to the panelists and also to Sports Management Club for reaching out and wanting to collab with our office. My name is Anna Maria Cirincione. I'm currently the director of the Multicultural Life and Diversity Office. For some of the alum, well, I think all of you, now that I'm looking at your graduation dates, I was working here already, but I started in 2015. So I've been at Cortland now for almost 6 years. It's gone by really fast. But I'm not alum myself, although I'm very proud to be a Red Dragon and a little bit jealous that I didn't go to Cortland. So I hope you all enjoy this. Again, to the panel, welcome. And we can begin introductions.
Okay. In the meantime, really quick, if you can in the chat, maybe share if you're a student, an alumni, faculty, staff, or community member, so we get a feel of who is here today with us. All right. So next, so just a quick run through for today. We're going to be asking the panelists some questions, and then later on, we're going to open it up for people to ask the panelists questions. We're asking folks to stay on mute in the meantime. And then once the panelists answer questions, they can unmute themselves. For the panelists, just remember you don't have to answer every single question we ask you. Just answer what applies to you right after the introduction. So without further ado, for introductions of the panelists, I have Howard Cole first. If you could share the year that you graduated from Cortland, currently what you're doing in your professional role, where you're from, and any social identities that you feel comfortable sharing. So whether that's your race, your ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, any of that you feel comfortable sharing. So Howard will start and then Elvis will go next.
Got you. Yeah, so my name is Howard Cole. Like to add the junior, separate myself from my father. But from Brooklyn, New York, Jamaican cultural background, played a lot of sports growing up. As of right now, I'm an account executive in the group sales space over at the New York Mets. And I believe that's everything, correct?
Yep, you got it. Did you share the year you graduated?
Oh, yeah. So I graduated in 2017, fall of 2017.
Thank you, Howard. Elvis is next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elvis DeLaRosa. I was born and raised in the South Bronx. I graduated 2016. My parents come from the Dominican Republic. I majored in sports management with a concentration in events and facility management. I'm currently working as an admin assistant for Metro Plus Health Plan. That's a New York City health and hospital company, which is the umbrella where all the public hospitals work under. And I also do a lot of freelance work, companies like New York Roadrunners and Bike New York, where they do a lot of fundraise for free education. And thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Elvis. I have Cherno next.
All right. Good evening, everyone. On paper, my name looks like Therno, but it's pronounced Cherno, like the word chair and the word no put together. I know a lot of former Cortland Dragons knows me as Therno, but my name is Cherno. Graduated in 2016 with my bachelor's in sport management. Had the luxury of playing football at SUNY Cortland as well. Played under Coach Mack. I was wide receiver for the Red Dragons, catching footballs, getting hit by linebackers, and doing all those things. And never, ever lost to Cortica, never lost to Ithaca, which is something that I take great pride in. But nonetheless, born and raised in Brooklyn as well. My parents immigrated to this country from Guinea, West Africa, for a better opportunity. So I'm first generation born, first person in my family to go to college, first person in my family to obtain a graduate degree, the whole 9 yards. And in terms of identity, I consider myself an African American, Muslim, male, raised by immigrant parents from Brooklyn, New York, right? Like that's who I am. Throughout the course of the day, I'm certainly juggling my identities, and throughout the day, we have some really interesting questions that we're going to tackle around identity and values and all those things. But really excited to be here, and thank you again, Lima, for putting me on. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, Cherno. We have Taulie next.
Hey guys, I'm Talia Fryerson, also a 2017 graduate. I was not born in the boroughs, as you folks would call it, upstate. I was born and raised in Albany, New York most of my life. I identify as a Black female. I'm currently a technology consultant with PricewaterhouseCoopers within the healthcare industry. And I think I answered all of those.
Thank you, Taulie. We have Nadia next, and then Tim.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Nadia Moore. I'm a fresh graduate, so class of 2020. I did sports management, and I also was on the varsity volleyball team at Cortland. I'm currently a senior account representative at a company called RTI International. Unlike everyone else and majority of Cortland, I'm from North Carolina, so that's where I'm back at right now. And yeah.
Thank you, Nadia. Tim, you're next. You're on mute, buddy.
Wow, I really thought I was saying something too. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Thompson. Gender pronouns are he, him. I'm a cisgendered Black heterosexual male. Graduated 2017. I'm originally from the Bronx, New York, South Bronx, like my man Elvis. Concentrated in international sport while I majored in sport management. What else do I do? I currently work at Tompkins Cortland Community College as the coordinator of diversity education and support services. And I'm on my last semester of grad school at Cornell University, pursuing my master's in public administration. And I'm on SUNY Cortland's alumni board, so that's pretty dope.
Yes, definitely. So thank you all to the panelists. We're going to get into the questions. Anna Maria and I is going to take turns asking questions. Like I said, for the panelists, we're going to ask you the questions. Feel free to answer the question that applies to you. You don't have to answer all of the questions. So the first question, how important is diversity to you, and what values does it bring?
I'll chime in.
Oh, go ahead, Therno.
All right, I'll go ahead and chime in. I realize I didn't share where I'm currently at. I currently work at Rutgers University in Piscataway, New Jersey. I'm the assistant director for facilities and operations. Just got the job, my 5th week on the job, so I'm still getting a feel for everything. And it's been really, really awesome working here. So back in the Big Ten, all that stuff, and it's really been awesome. But in terms of how important diversity is to me, it's critically important. I think diversity is important for a variety of reasons. Number one, it allows people to look at things from a different lens, bring people from different backgrounds to the table. Quite frankly, during my interview process, I was open about my experiences, open about my identity, because I didn't want these folks to be surprised on the type of person they was getting on the job, right? And sometimes people tend to respectfully compromise themselves to kind of put themselves in positions, whether it's through the interview process or through, PowerPoints and all those things. But I think it's important to stay true to who you are, stay true to what you value, and not be afraid to stay true to that, because quite frankly, everybody's different, right? We all have different leadership styles, different ways of thinking. Our background has played a key role in who we are, right? So to think that everybody's the same is a naive way of thinking, right? So I think diversity, again, is really important. Representation matters. Quite frankly, when I was a child, I thought all white people were smart. Reason being is because whenever I'd watch ESPN or CNN or any of these major outlets, I've always seen white men speaking eloquently in suits and ties, right? And the only time I've seen people of color was actually on the basketball court or football field or anything like that. So I had a narrow mind on what I could be, right? And as I've been able to kind of navigate certain challenges and certain opportunities, I realized that we too can be in these positions. We too can accomplish whatever we want to accomplish out there. So it starts with representation, it starts with diversity, it starts with mentorship, And I think having these discussions and the fact that Cortland is doing this is amazing, but having these discussions in these platforms is really good for us as well. So I'm a strong advocate for diversity and inclusion for a variety of reasons, but hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks, Cherno. Tim, I know you wanted to go.
It's always tough to follow Therno. We took sport marketing together with Peter Hahn, and I always had to follow this man. So for me, diversity means representation. And representation is part of achieving belonging. So if you think about spaces where people feel like they don't belong, they typically lack in representation. So think about students of color at a PWI. They may feel like they don't belong because there isn't representation of people of color at that institution. And another more applicable example to our conversation is if women feel as though they don't belong in athletic coaching positions, there may be a lack in representation of women coaches. And so if we look at diversity as representation, it's extremely important because we always want the people around us to feel as though they belong.
Thank you. Anyone else from the panelists? Elvis?
Yes. What I like to talk about is like diversity for me is very important, and sometimes it's hard to like even explain it because, you know, coming from the South Bronx, my group of friends was just Latinos and Blacks, and once I went to Cortland and TC3, you know, I had to interact with different race and different religious beliefs and stuff like that. And also, when I was growing up in the school system in New York City, you know, I had an IEP. You know, I was scared to talk about that, put into special education and things like that. But, you know, once I went to high school and college, those resources are there to use. And that's something I really want to share because I was always embarrassed to share that. You know, it's hard for me to concentrate, take exams and things like that. So just diversity is something that opened my eyes once I left the Bronx, and I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you, Elvis. Is there anyone else on the panel?
I guess just more so to piggyback off of Cherno's point, it's very important, again, to get the perspectives of like other cultures and how they go about doing things in efforts to progress. I know specifically at the Mets, and this is probably a question in which we're going to dive into, like we're in Flushing. That's mainly like the Asian culture. So like being able to have, as Tim said, representation of the Asian culture within, say, the New York Mets, that would probably help them being able to acquire more Asian American type of people within the organization. And that's something in which we're looking into representation, how we'd be able to acquire more of these top level execs into positions of leadership so that people will feel more comfortable coming into an organization like that.
Thank you, Howard. Anyone else before Anna Maria gets to number 2? All right, Anna Maria.
Okay. So the next question is, can you share data on your organization's diversity? So, you know, if you work at an institution or a company, what does the diversity look like as far as employees go?
I'll go ahead and chime in again. I just started my job at Rutgers, so it's still relatively new. But what I can say, just being here for about 5 weeks and looking at our staff directory, we have a lot of work to do. And that's no secret amongst our school and a variety of other institutions of higher learning, right? There's a lack of representation there, similar to what Tim alluded to and similar to what Cole alluded to as well. So I think hiring could be very difficult because the last thing you want to do is be on a search committee and say, we're looking for a female of color. We want a female of color, or we want a Hispanic, or we want like that. That's a form of discrimination, right? So you have to put in work to essentially diversify your pool, right? Diversify the folks that you want on board, go through a thorough interview process, and over time, the best candidates will come about. But I think at Rutgers, I don't have those exact data points, but we do have work that we need to do. And I think folks are being intentional about wanting to diversify their staff. And it starts with hiring people. It starts with partnering with NACDA, which is a big company in college athletics, to provide interns, especially students of color, opportunities in our industry, right? So access opportunity is how we increase our diversity numbers, so that way we could look like a representation of our student athletes, which is really diverse, considering that we're located in the tri-state area and we recruit across the country. So there's some work that we need to do here at Rutgers, and I think over time we'll be able to get there.
Yeah, so I'll go next. I'm in PricewaterhouseCoopers, and like I said, I'm a technology consultant, and I face a lot of challenges similar to most of you in the sport world. It's usually male dominated, right? So I would say I don't have specific statistics, but we're lacking with women and minorities. And a lot of the part, it goes back to what Tim was saying, is we don't have that representation, right? There aren't a lot of women partners in the firm right now, and a lot of them kind of tinker out at as well as minorities at the manager level. So right now, PwC is analyzing, how can we make sure that everyone's aligning with their career? How can we get more female partners and minority partners? And I think a big thing is you need people to look like you to want to be around you and work with you. So one thing PwC is working, and they're really on the forefront of diversity in corporate America, is just how can we recruit and make sure that we're, like you said, we're bringing in people that look like us and represent us. So we're definitely lacking in minorities and women for sure.
And if I were to touch on specifically the sales department with the New York Mets, I could probably number it to a T. I think in total on that floor, we probably have around let's go before COVID. We probably had around 70 people, call it. There are probably 5 that were Black, 5, 6, maybe 3, 4 that were women. So that's kind of, in terms of numbers, what it looked like on the floor.
I guess the best way I put it is at TC3, when thinking about our faculty and staff, the racial and ethnic makeup isn't reflective of our student body. And so I guess the best way for me, trying to think about how the best way for me to say this, if our student population was, let's say, 40% Latinx and 60% white students, you ideally would like the faculty and staff to reflect that representation. And it's nowhere near that. So I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and for those who are alum, updated data on Cortland, because I know it's differed a little bit, we've actually increased the diversity within our student body, where I think we're at currently about 25% students of color, which is predominantly made up of those who identify as Black and Latinx. However, again, what Tim said, that is not the same as our faculty and staff. I believe for faculty and staff, we're at 4%. To know if any of the other panelists wanted to answer this question as well.
So at my job, it's a little different. So again, I'm a senior account representative at RTI International. So when I started it, it was during COVID. So it's a little different. I don't know exactly all the people that work, because it's a big company and I work for a government-led program through there. But from what I have seen through Zooms, I can actually say where I am, about half of them are Black. So that's kind of comforting. And with that, I actually have relationships more with my Black employees, just because when you see someone else that looks like you automatically get drawn to them. So as far as I can see, as far as recruiting wise for my company and them getting people in for diversity, it looks fine. But I don't know about the whole company as a whole, just because of COVID. I haven't got a chance to really go in and examine everything. So.
All right. So question number 3, we have, does your company or organization have any diversity programs in place? Anyone want to share?
Actually can speak a little bit on that. So at my company, they have, I don't know the exact organization, it's like a Black employee corporate type of group that they have that they created, I think within the last year with all of like the racial tensions and things that were happening there. And I don't fully know all the information about it, but from what I understand, when I got an alert about it or like an email, they've just been kind of pushing diversity and things like that, and also trying to keep the company aware of different political and racial things that are happening. So one of the policies they put in my job were when there's like a big racial event or something political, that's something that's happened that's affected us, we have the opportunity to take off that day to kind of go through and work through whatever is happening there. Outside of that, I don't know a lot about it. Again, because of COVID, it kind of messes up the conversation, like things like that with other Black employees, because a lot of us are new. So yeah.
I could jump in, and I think Nadia raised a very interesting point. Because when answering these questions, it's like we have to think about the ways in which social distancing has impacted. Like would my answer change if we weren't socially distanced? So I think that's a really interesting point that needed to be raised. Because each question I had to think about that. And talking about the programs that we have cultural competency programming. So which is essentially diversity trainings. We also have a group on campus called the Diversity, Equity, and Action Council, which holds our institution accountable in terms of fulfilling this organizational diversity statement. And an initiative that Liam and I both work on is a group called C4, Cortland County Community of Color, which is essentially a retention initiative to retain professionals of color in the area. Because what's happened is young professionals come in the area, there's no community, so why am I staying? There are no people of color who I can engage with in the workplace, which is exacerbated right now during this time of social distancing. Thank you, Nadia. And so this is why we put together the Cortland County Community of Color.
Anyone else on the panel?
Yeah, so PricewaterhouseCoopers, I'm actually really satisfied, and this is one of the main reasons I actually stay with the company, is really doing well with diversity. They have this program called like CEO Action, and it's actually a whole bunch of CEOs get together and they discuss how they can have diversity in the workplace. We have different multi-tier diversity inclusion programs, as well as they offer a platform. So for example, I'm on a project and I'm not on an official committee, but I created my own subcommittee, and I'm helping the client with diversity inclusion kind of initiatives, and that's kind of against my own time. So I'd say being in corporate America, they're definitely in the forefront and really wanting change, and our CEO is very transparent about how we lack diversity and is willing to ask us, how can we increase recruitment? So they have a lot of initiatives set in place.
Nice. Anyone else before Anna Maria goes to the next question?
Okay. So the next question is, what do you think can be done to further diversify this major and the industry of sports management?
I can start off. One thing we could do is use your former students or current students, go into their communities or where they're from, to promote the program or talk about different majors. Because when I was in high school, I didn't really take part in college fairs, which I feel like is a small amount of kids that know about those stuff that's going on once they're gonna go to college. I was just focusing on basketball. I didn't really know what I wanted to do in college. So maybe using some of your former students to go into their schools or schools in their area to talk about the program and the sports industry or whatever major that you decide to talk about. So that's one thing I feel like that could definitely work out, using your former students and current students.
Yeah, I'll chime in next. I think one way we can diversify our industry is really expanding our understanding, right? Expanding our mindset to some degree, especially as people of color. Like we could be more than just athletes, right? We could be more than just coaches. And far too often when you play a certain sport, you tend to think that you could only go pro, when in reality, there are more opportunities working in sports than there are actually being a professional athlete, right? So you can become that head coach, that athletic director, that general manager, right? That leader of an organization from an administrative standpoint. So I think a part of it too, to some degree, is a mindset. Because I know when I was playing football, like the mindset was just to be the next Calvin Johnson or the next Julio Jones. When quite frankly, I wasn't skilled enough to be even that good, but two, realize that there's more administrative opportunities there too. So a part of it is a mindset, but it also goes back to exposure, because a lot of us haven't been exposed to these roles and these opportunities where we only think that we could just be athletes. So I think the exposure piece is important, and also realizing that shadowing and asking questions and attending conferences is a great way to not only learn, but network with people who are in positions of leadership that you aspire to one day have. So it's certainly going to be a process, but I think we're trending in the right direction with everything that's going on.
Yeah, and literally to add off of that, I've known Lima since I stepped in the door of Cortland, and she's been preaching, get out there, get involved in literally everything. So I think it's two ways. From like an organization standpoint, I think they have to be a little bit more intentional with where they go to recruit. A lot of places in which they go to recruit aren't necessarily where there'll be an influx of people of color. So maybe being a little bit more intentional of where they go to recruit, and then it's on us as well to put ourselves out there. As he mentioned, being able to network and connect with these people that are in different industries, we can essentially know not exactly, but know the type of field that you'd want to get into. And from there, that's already a foot in the door. I definitely encourage everybody, especially on LinkedIn, connect with whoever you can, because you never know who you run into, and it's just opportunity waiting for you to knock on the door.
Howard, but also to your point, like folks got to know the industry too, right? Like, for example, in my space, college athletics, like you have to know about college athletics, not the teams and the brands and the rankings and top 25. Like you got to know about a little bit about compliance, about risk management, about facilities, about ticket operations. Have a basic understanding of it so that we can engage in these discussions, right? Because during the interview process, nobody wants to hire a fan of college athletics, right? We're looking for administrators. We're looking for people who could become decision makers. So yes, I love March Madness, and that's coming up here in Indianapolis, right? We're all juiced up about it. But as you all are watching college basketball or college football, whatever, look at what's happening outside of the lines. Take a look at the event staff, the sponsorship opportunities, the game officials, the scoreboard, the advertisements. Take a look at that piece and see why is it happening the way that it's happening, right? That's how you start to develop that sport manager mindset, as opposed to just being a generic fan where you're just happy that somebody scored a touchdown. When you're working in sports, especially the event management side, we could care less about who wins. We just want to make sure everything's going smoothly, right? Just being honest.
To kind of go off some of the points that were made earlier, to further the industry, I think also not only just acknowledge that there is a lack of diversity, but also say that it's not okay. And like take that step to be like, okay, what can I do to help further that? It's okay to be the first person that does be a part of this program and things like that. But then also I think not only as a student, you should be trying to, like they said, try to take the next step to try to learn about the different parts of sports management and put yourself out there. But then also, I think on our side as alumni and people that are in the sports industry, I think we should also take the initiative to try to reach out to students and try to help them understand and learn more about sports management and the different realms of it. Because I know going in and all I know was event management. I didn't know anything else. And that's also because I've only just seen women in particular just be event managers, and that's where we're capped at, that's where we're left at, not at the executive level where I can make a decision, which again, representation, why it's important. And then also I think as a woman, for me, because men are dominant in sports management, it would be nice to possibly have opportunity to have a male mentor. And I think that's something else that within our like community and people of color, like men can kind of take that step and put me onto a job, not just your friends and not just your guys. Like also I want to be there. Like I think that's also something that we can do within our own community to help each other build up, not just your bro, help me out too, because it is hard. And it's a double whammy because I'm Black and I'm a woman and I'm trying to get in there. And the only way I see myself is planning an event. What if I want to be at the executive level and make those decisions too? So not just, we also should try to educate people if we are in the opportunities to do that. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think also like it's about like educating our community guys, right? Like of what we're doing. Like you're saying, a lot of people know events, they want to be fans. I remember I worked in compliance and my family had no idea what I was talking about and what I was doing. And I'm in a similar situation now. So how can we like we're kind of the forefront, right? We're in these industries, we're breaking these glass barriers, but how do we go back and educate people on what we're doing and explain to them their job so they can say like, hey, yes, I see myself as Therno one day. I see myself as Tim. So then when organizations go and SUNY Cortland does recruit, they're not only recruiting, but they're also educating people in these communities. And now we understand like, okay, I understand what the sport management program is and what Cortland has to offer me. So I think there's a little bit of action that needs to be taken on both ends to really see success and growth forward.
Awesome.
I guess.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I cut someone off? I apologize.
Oh no, you're okay, Tim.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I guess I want to echo what Nadia was saying in terms of acknowledging the issues. I think that if we want to further diversity, we have to be willing to talk about issues of diversity in sport, which I don't think is really happening, especially when we look at the issues that women face. So I know, like, I'm not in the field right now, but I have extensive experience in the field working with Elvis and Kev. Kev's also on the call. He's not on the panel, even though he should be. That's another conversation. But we have extensive experience working in the field and seeing women not have certain opportunities, and no one's really talking about that. So going back to the point of that I made around diversity and representation, like, do people like me and you have opportunities in this field? And so we have diversity. The next is inclusion. So are we represented across the hierarchy of power, like different levels of power? So is the diversity as a director, a vice president, a president? And then if there is, are folks treated fairly? Is there equity? So the craziest example for me is whenever I'm watching ESPN and you look at the anchors or the analysts, and they may have a woman there, but I never really get a chance to hear her opinion. She's there to facilitate or mediate the two men that are sitting there having an argument about whether LeBron is better than Michael Jordan. These are conversations that we need to have. And I'm really talking to the men on the call. These are conversations that us men need to have in terms of being more equitable.
And one more thing, I just kind of want to go off of what you said, Tim, was basically like who's sitting at the table making these decisions. So when we're talking about what areas to recruit, are they the minority or are they the majority, right? Do we have a woman sitting at the table? Do we have a minority sitting at the table so I can address, hey, listen, this is where we're lacking, this is where I'm struggling? Or is it just the male dominant population? And those are people saying like, yes, let's go and recruit in these, but they don't really understand, right? They can sympathize, but they can't empathize. So just another thing to think about.
Another thing, I just want to chime this in, like when we do get in these positions of leadership, positions of influence, as people of color, and when we have to deliver, right? Like we have a small margin of error, right? Why? Because our colleagues are constantly watching us, whether they want to say it or not. This is the truth, right? We're constantly being watched, constantly being evaluated, how we talk, how we dress, how we walk, how we operate, how we do our jobs, how we lead, right? We're constantly being watched. So yes, I'm a strong advocate for getting in these positions and doing all the great things that we're talking about. But at the same time, when we're at the seat at the table, we got to deliver, right? And any shortcoming that we do have could be detrimental, not only to us, but for those who's going to come after us. So that's just something that we don't always talk about a lot, but something that my mentor taught me is whenever you get in these positions, like you have to always be on your P's and Q's because you never know.
Thank you, everybody. Really great advice. I think it's important to look at holistically what an organization can do, and then also individually. I think you both gave great examples of that. And for our next question, which still relates, says, are diverse identities, ideas, and ways of thinking and working valued in your organization?
Yeah, so I would say yes for me in PwC, and corporate America is great. One thing that really resonated with me, and I knew like this is the place I want to be if I want to have change. When everything was going on with George Floyd, obviously our company came out with a statement, and at the end of their webcast, our CEO says, if you don't understand why this is a problem, then this isn't the place for you. And for like a CEO to say that, most people, turn their back and everything. And for him to basically say, like, if you don't understand this, leave my company. That's when I realized, like, I have a platform. And like you said, Therno, I have a seat at the table. I'm not going to be scared to talk. I'm going to talk, be the voice for minorities, be the voice for women. And I'm also going to be the example, right? And say, I've been there and look where I am. You can do it too. So I'd say it's widely accepted, but that is very rare in the arena that I am in.
I mean, I could go off a little bit about MetroPlus Health Plan. Right now, during the pandemic, a lot of family members lost their jobs and stuff like that. So MetroPlus Health Plan stepped up and started giving out a lot of groceries and all over the 5 boroughs. In Queens, Queens is a very diverse area. So last week we did a food giveaway for the Chinese New Year. And also we always try to do events, not just for the public, but also for staff. We did an event with Charlemagne the God about mental health. So that's something that they always try to represent and the value of diversity.
Would anybody else like to speak to this question?
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, definitely. It says, are diverse identities, ideas, and ways of thinking and working valued in your organization?
So similar to Taulie's example, at TC3, our president flat out came out and said that this institution, Black Lives Matter. So from that standpoint, I know in relation to race and social unrest, I would say that it's valued. But there can always be improvements made in terms of having value and diversity of perspective. I think it's very interesting to be I would say SUNY Cortland, TC3, are left-leaning institutions in terms of political beliefs, but we serve communities that can be right-leaning, and so it kind of has we have a conflict of interest in a classroom where folks are trying to learn something, and an educator may think one way, and the student population think another way. And so having value in different perspectives than your own is a conversation that needs to be happening even at institutions where diversity is valued.
Thank you, Tim. Any last comments? Okay, so Lima will ask the next question.
All right. So some of you kind of answered this question already, but if you want to share more, does your organization's workplace reflect the diversity of the community? Any of you want to share on that one?
Yeah, I'll chime in here. For us at Rutgers, it doesn't. Even though we are a very diverse community, our athletic staff, there are some things that we need to do, and our senior staff is well aware of this, and they're putting in the effort. But you just can't just start creating positions and start firing people just to have a diverse staff, right? It's certainly going to be a process. And Pat Hobbs, who's our athletic director, is well aware of all of these things. But college athletics is very interesting because if you ever go to a college basketball game, a college football game, like the racial dynamic is very off, right? Like the majority of the players on the field, on the court, most of the time are African American, right? And all the people who are watching them, who are writing about them, who are covering them are white, right? So I think that in itself tells you the landscape of higher education and the work that we need to do in terms of diversifying our entire community, our institution, our athletic department, and everything else. But as you know, things just take time, and it almost seems like an excuse, but that's just our harsh reality. Where we're at in 2021 is not the same as where we were at in 1960. And the fact that progress is taken so slow is unfortunate, But any progress that you could get is always good progress, considering our country's history. And quite frankly, when George Floyd got murdered, a lot of people all of a sudden woke up and realized that we have some issues in this country in terms of how we interact and how we view other people from different backgrounds. So I think George Floyd's death essentially woke people up. And it's unfortunate that it took somebody to die in order for us to realize that. It's really unfortunate. But at the end of the day, I think we're trending in the right direction. I just wish we would move at a quicker rate, but any progress is great progress.
Anyone else to this question? All right. If not, Anna Marie, you can move on to the next one.
Okay. So the next question is, are you willing to speak about navigating your profession with your identities?
I'll jump in. So as a Black man, I've experienced some racism being in Central New York. But if we're talking about identities, outside of that, I'm a cisgender heterosexual male. So I think I'm pretty privileged in that regard. I don't have to worry much about what I'm wearing and how people perceive how I'm dressing. I don't have to really worry about people talking over me in meetings. So I think it's important to acknowledge that sometimes we get wrapped up in race, but there are other identities that give us some privilege. And for me, it's important to acknowledge those.
For me, one of the things that I've learned as I'm progressing along my career is really the art of code switching. Quite frankly, we don't spend a lot of time talking about that, but it's real, right? I'm a kid from Brooklyn, right? So how I communicate on the job, right, in these meetings with conferences and coaches and administrators and donors is significantly different than how I communicate with my homies back home in Brooklyn, right? The rhetoric that we use, the slang that we use, the verbiage that we use is different, right? And then you factor in, for me, the fact that I was raised by immigrants, right? So at home, we speak Fulani, which is my native language, right? And then I'm also Muslim. So when I'm praying and reading the Quran, it's all in Arabic. So throughout the course of the day, I'm speaking Arabic, I'm speaking Fulani, I'm on my athletic director flow, I'm trying to become an AD. And then I got my bros back home in Brooklyn that I'm chopping it up with, right? So it's really a challenge, and I've learned to juggle these communication styles, right? But at the end of the day, even though I'm changing how I talk or altering how I'm talk, I'm still the same person, right? I'm still the same person, I still have the same core beliefs. I'm still the same juiced up person that interacts with anybody, because that's just what I believe in. But far too often, I think that's one of the things that we struggle with is understanding what to say, how to say when you're interacting with certain people, because quite frankly, people will judge you on the first 7 things that you say that comes out of your mouth, right? And that's just a harsh reality that we live in. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And I got humbled a few times in my career early on. And I think those humbling moments certainly made me grow along the way. So for me, code switching is something that I do on a regular basis. Whether it's appropriate or not appropriate, it got to the point where it's just natural at this point. But I know it's a necessity in order for me to get to where I want to be, which is to one day lead an athletic department and become an athletic director one day.
I guess for me, I'm going to speak a little less about the current job I have and more, I guess, about my previous experience with like internships and working. I worked at Syracuse and Cornell University in the athletic department. And being a Black woman working alongside athletic directors, I know initially it's very intimidating, especially because most of the staff don't look like me and I'm supposed to be responsible. And in a way, sometimes I feel like they definitely didn't think I was qualified. I know I had like some had another intern with me who definitely didn't know how I got there somehow, because he knew nothing of me other than I was a Black girl that came in from Cortland. And then also just navigating through that, finding my place. And a part of sports, you have to be able to you have to be able to adapt with whatever's happening. And then also you want to try to network, and it's hard to network when there's no one that like you, so you don't know what to talk about. And so that was something that I've struggled with before, trying to find out, like, how can I get into these conversations when I know nothing about anything that they're talking about. So that's something that I've been learning to do, and that's part of, like you said, trying to learn how to code switch and try to figure out, like, hey, what can I chime in and say in this? So just going through that, I think, is one of the biggest things, professional wise, within the sports management, is trying to figure out where do I fit in to try to put myself with these people that I'm working with. So
Nadia, but you shouldn't feel intimidated. Want to know why? Because at the end of the day, if you remove their title, if you remove the brand that they're associated with, these are all people, right? We bleed the same, we walk the same, we watch Netflix and chill, like we're regular human beings, right? So sometimes I fell victim to that too, right? Especially when I was an intern at the Big Ten, where I'm interacting with these powerful ADs. I'm like, wait, I don't think I belong in a room. No, you do belong, right? You do belong. You have every right to be there. Right, so intimidation is could be psychological, but if you talk your way out of that, Nadia, you'll quickly realize some of the great things you could accomplish, for sure.
And I want to go off that. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Alva. I just want to say, jump into what Therno and Nadia were talking about. I think it has a lot to do with oftentimes communities of color or women, people of different marginalized backgrounds, feeling that imposter syndrome, that sense of not belonging, like not feeling worthy enough. And I think Therno gave some great advice, because once you recognize it, it's easier to be able to, give yourself that validation that you do belong in that space. So I'm sorry, Elvis, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to go on what Nadia was saying. When I was an intern at the Jets, it was like a group of 6 of us that were Black and Latino out of like 30, 35 interns. And I was part of the entertainment and halftime show team. So we did stuff on the field. That's some of our dreams when we go to sports management, to work for a team like that and do an internship like that, right? Go on the field, see the players, interact with staff. But I felt left out. I'm like, I can't interact with a lot of these interns because they talk about different things, and I felt very left out, and that's something I didn't really want to keep doing. Like, I could have done the intern again the next year, but I was like, you know what? Didn't feel it. I didn't feel like I didn't want to go there. And I'm not saying this for the students to be like, oh, maybe I should not apply for this position. No, maybe things have changed. Their staff has changed. They're trying to work more on diversity. But when I was at the Jets, I felt really left out, and I'm happy that Nadia brought that up, and that's what I wanted to share.
just also to piggyback off that and kind of piggyback off one of the previous questions about how important diversity is going through those experiences makes me want to try to put myself in more uncomfortable situations where I wouldn't feel that anymore moving forward into a profession. Like for me, for example, in the fall, I'll be going to law school, and it's definitely not going to be a lot of me. A lot of people that look like me, that are going to be there. So I definitely try to embrace that I'm the only one there, and then try to figure out ways in which I can navigate. And I think that's, again, really important, why diversity is not just like companies and why they should hire more Black people, but also why us as Black people and people of color, we should put ourselves into opposite situations. That way we can be more valuable and we can learn how to adapt more. And that way it'll be easier for us to get into the door, and we can also allow for others to kind of fall behind you. Like, this is what Nadia did. She did X, Y, and Z, and that's why she's in this position, and things like that. So.
Yeah, kind of to piggyback off of Nadia, my motto this year has been, be comfortable with making people uncomfortable. I'm looking at a lot of faces like, women, you will be challenged. You can say 10 correct things, and they're just waiting for you to have that one trip up. So if Therno didn't, code switch like he was supposed to, they're going to focus on, well, we were waiting for Therno to make a mistake. It's going to happen. It's inevitable, and we all have had those barriers. but like, don't let that intimidate you, right? Like Elvis, he didn't have a great experience and could have went back, but he chose not to, another path. But let's think like Nadia is leading a path, right? Somebody's going to look up and be like, I want to be like Nadia. You know, let's look at it and be like, I want to be like Therno. I want to be like Tim. So I'm always like challenging the status quo. And I'm very bold, and sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I'm going to lose my job. But if I'm going to lose my job behind like advocating, then that's not the organization for me. So basically, like, you know, challenge the status quo. If there's not a lot of people that look like you, why don't they look like you? You know, address the problem. Can we, you know, change our recruitment strategies, et cetera, knock down those glass ceilings. Let's create that path. So now the next generation and the generations behind us can say like, yes, Therno, Tim, Talia, that's what I want to do. That's who I want to be.
I have to jump in and talk about this. The imposter syndrome conversation is one that's not had enough. And when I think about sport management and my lived experience in this field, it's crazy that we're all on this chat because I'm on this call with 3 people who I've worked with extensively, whether that's Therno, Elvis, Taulie. There was several times in this program where I felt like I didn't belong. And like being in marketing with Therno, this man could talk. He could get in front of a classroom and talk. But he's somebody who also talks like me, you know? We both had that lingo. And so I could see him doing this, and it's like, oh, wow, I could do this too. Elvis, working with Elvis, I knew I could be a sport manager because I watched him. I watched him lead crowds of hundreds of people, or thousands of people rather, at the New York City Marathon, the largest marathon in the world. I've worked with Talia. I don't know many people that can work that hard. Nadia the same way. People who have amazing work ethics, and you look at them and you're like, wow, I could do it too. And it's like we need to talk about building these communities or joining a network or something like that, because it's important to be able to engage with folks who have similar backgrounds as you, and you can push each other to grow. Because if you don't have that representation, you may be in trouble.
You're the man, Tim.
I'm just trying to be like y'all.
Echo that.
One thing I could say after to go off Tim, take advantage of the stuff that's going on at SUNY Cortland. You know, the New York City Marathon trip is every year. You know, me, Tim, my friend Kevin, I know Alex was running it after we left. But take advantage of it, because we were on a car ride down to New York City with exchange students from Germany. We had Alex from Canada, my good friend Kin, his family is from Hong Kong. You know, you would never think you would have been socializing with all these people, right? So always take advantage of the programs they have, even though you're always going to be whack. No, it's the people in the program, the people you're going to be with, that in the future, you don't know if you're going to need their help. You don't know. So always take advantage of the programs and have fun and take. Yeah.
I have a question on code switching. So like code switching, very, very real. Something in which I feel like I deal with on a daily basis, especially like with talking to a number of different clients. I do catch myself asking, like, why do I feel the need to do such a thing? Like, as long as I'm respectful, not necessarily like talking out of character or anything like that. But like, if I'm respectful, I'm still able to have that little lingo. You know how they say you learn something here, you learn something there, but you put your own twist to it. Like, why can't we have our own twist in corporate America and still be like respected, or this person is like, why is he talking like that, or anything like that?
Howard, one time I went back home to Brooklyn, right? And I was talking to one of my mans about some of the things that I was doing in my job, and he literally said, "Yo, why are you talking like you like, bro?" And like literally, when he said that, I saw red. I was ready to swing, ready to fight. I'm not white, with all due respect to white people. I'm not white. I'm the furthest thing from white. I love being black. I love who I am. Right. So sometimes within our community too, as we try and progress along our career, we tend to get anchored down by some of the comments or some of the things that we say amongst our own community. So we have some work that we need to do, right, amongst ourselves too. But I just wanted to share that quickly because sometimes code switching is an art too, but sometimes other people may perceive you as like you're losing yourself, you're losing your blackness. I know exactly who I am, right? Like I know exactly who I am, but sometimes, especially people that you grew up with could tend to think that you're changing for the worse, you're losing yourself, when in reality you're actually trying to better yourself and better your situation, better your family, et cetera, et cetera. So literally when he said that, how I saw red, I was ready to fight. But luckily, I had more to lose than he did, so I decided to just walk away.
I know that we're running low on time, so I wanted to open it up really quick to see if anyone has questions for the panelists. Anyone in the audience?
And ask the real questions too.
Yeah, don't
And
be
you
shy.
can write it in the chat, or you can also unmute as well. So whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Just if you're gonna unmute, just so that we don't have too many at the same time, just put your name in the chat and we'll call on you.
Yeah. And if you don't have any questions, in the meantime, maybe if any of the panelists want to share some expectations from what to expect from the sports management field, as someone who's graduating.
One thing I could say is going to be a lot of competition. Once when I was finishing up my last semester, I could say I applied to almost 90 internships, and I got called back like a few days before my graduation. So it's always going to be competition, but you are in one of the best sports management programs in the world, SUNY Cortland. So the opportunity is going to come, and I feel like you just got to be patient, and remember the faces in your classes because you're going to be seeing them. Like I saw Howard in the Mets at Citi Field. He passed me. He gave me a little ticket. Like, yo, he's an upgrade. So always remember the people around you, and just make connections.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
To go off of what Elvis said, don't let the no's scare you off. That's going to happen. Like especially speaking from someone that just graduated, and now that we're in COVID, it kind of makes everything else harder because it's limited on entry jobs and things like that. Like I had an internship lined up, I was so excited, and then it got canceled because COVID. So that's definitely, don't let that discourage you. And also sports management is one of those type of fields where you don't necessarily have to get a sports management job, but as long as you're getting a job that will be useful for later when you go and want to go back into it, it's still okay. Like right now, my job isn't something that I thought I was going to be doing, and it's not exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life, but it is helping me sharpen my communication skills. It's helping me learn how to be more organized, how to tailor my speech and everything to different people. So it's still teaching me something that I can eventually take back into sports management when I have a chance to get a job in there, and things like that. So don't let that discourage you, especially with COVID and everything.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Nadia.
Yeah, I would say also, like, guys, don't ever say no to something. It might not be a clear career path, and you might need to go to compliance and then event to get to where you want. And I know it's so cliche, but it's truly who you know, right? Like you might be working with Tim or Therno and you want to be an AD and you're in sales, and that has nothing to do, like, it's not, you don't see a clear path, but because you work with Tim and Therno, now they have these connections and they're like, hey, listen, here's this job opening, here's what it is. You might not get your dream job off the bat. I'm just going to be real with you guys, which is okay. Don't close doors that may get you there, that you might not see the clear path.
I definitely agree, Taulie. I see Kevin's name in the chat really quick. I want to get to his question.
Hey, what's up, Lima? How's it going?
Hey,
How's
Kevin.
everybody doing? First and foremost, Cherno, my bad. My bad. Cherno.
It's all good. It's all good. A lot of people still know me as Therno. It's going to take some time, but
I had a question. Well, before all that, first and foremost, I'm proud of everyone. Tim, Elvis, everyone. Proud of you guys. My question is more along of the approach to, and I wrote this down, so it's the approach to becoming more inclusive within regards to diversity in your respective fields. So how do you make someone, a graduate, a young person, how do you make them feel comfortable? How do you foster them in their transition to becoming a professional? And has anyone helped you transition, and how has that helped you and your approach in your field and in life?
I'll chime in on this one. For me, I look at life like very spiritually and religiously because again, I'm Muslim, right? So I think I firmly believe in people. I believe in treating people well. So whether you're the custodial staff member or you're the CEO of a company, that quite frankly to me, it really doesn't matter. I'm going to acknowledge you, support you, and do the best that I can. So mentorship for me is really important. Like I'm mentoring a couple white students in the sport management program, and a kid from Queens as well who's graduating from St. John's. But the biggest thing there is constantly being there for them, right? Being able to answer whatever questions that they may have, and be vulnerable about your experiences. Like again, I've worked Division 3, I've worked Division 2, I've worked Division 1, I've worked at the conference office, I've worked at an institution, right? So I have a broad range of experiences that I can share. But people also need to be willing to receive that information too, and be willing to get coached up and be willing to say, hey, yo, what you did right there was really not the right thing to do. You should have done it like this, all those types of things. So fostering a relationship kind of goes both ways, right? You don't want to be someone who just takes information, right? You want to be able to add value to the relationship so that way it can be mutually beneficial to both parties who are involved in it, Kevin. So again, mentorship is important. You got to provide opportunities, connect with people. And for me, I've always been intentional. I have 3 core values: family, authenticity, and respect. That's just what I believe in. And I think having that mindset has really served me well along my career. And I think one day when I get a chance to lead a department, I'm going to try and instill those values in my staff. And hopefully they could instill that in their family members, in their communities, and all that type of stuff. But it starts with human interaction, whether you're black, white, old, Asian, non-believer, believer. Quite frankly, I'm in no position to dictate anybody's life. But I believe in respect and values. And I think having that mindset is what we need. And we just haven't been able to do that since our country's history.
To bounce over that, Cherno, I guess, because a lot of us may be mentees looking for mentors, right? Like, how do you envision a mentee adding value to you?
Quite frankly, just telling me, yeah, great question. The latest trends that are happening right now, right, in terms of what they're learning in the sport management program, right, or what are some of the things that we can do from a game management standpoint. Hey, I saw this on TV. I noticed that the ads didn't go well. Like, I think there's still ways that a student, right, even though you don't have hands-on experience, can still add value to the relationship based on what they're seeing. Hey, I saw this article about name, image, and likeness, which is a hot topic right now in college athletics. Hey, Chetno, what do you think about that? I think at some point the NCAA should provide stipend opportunity for student athletes. Like, there's so many different ways where a student could add value based on the knowledge that they do, knowledge and research that they apply to the industry. And that's just me speaking on behalf of college athletics, right? Like, there's some folks who work in pro sports, licensing, apparel, marketing. Like, the sports industry is so broad, so generic. And I want you all to expand your opportunities there. So, Howard, to your point, students can still add value even though they don't have hands-on experience based on their intent and how they plan on connecting with the person that they're trying to connect with.
I'll jump in. I think Therno covered all bases in answering that question. So I'll go back to the advice piece. I always emphasize networking with the folks that you are in class with. Half of my resume is because I know Elvis. Half of my resume is because I know Elvis. And one of the greatest interviewing opportunities that I had in sport management was with a guy named Derek Bocanegra. He works with the Brooklyn Nets. I've interviewed with them twice because of the connection I've had with him. It wasn't a professor. There's nothing wrong with networking professors, but don't forget you're in class with people pursuing the same opportunities, and they might get them before you. But that doesn't mean they can't keep the door open and let you in. And so that's something to really think about, because how many folks on this call have actually worked together? We've made money together, actually. And so that's something to think about.
To go off Tim, one thing I could say is don't be afraid to reach out to people. You know, when I started in high school, I realized volunteering really helped me out to get a lot of opportunities I have. You know, you're not getting paid, but if you work your butt off and a manager or something sees you working your butt off, next year they might tell you, hey, come, I'll pay you $20 an hour to do it. That's how I got all my opportunities. And I was able to bring it to TC3. I know probably Professor Chase is here. He's the one that helped me start the marathon program that's in Cortland now too. But don't feel afraid to reach out to people. I know now Grow Runners has the first New York City Marathon race director, first Black race director, which is long due, but he's the man, Ted Metellus. If you have time, they have an article on him. But if you go to my messages in Facebook, I hit him up like 50 times, like, yo, bro, how can I do this? And, you know, I was after volunteering, the next year I got paid. So take time to volunteer and don't be there with your arms crossed. Work your butt off and do what you got to do, because sometimes that's the opportunity that you have.
I wanted to say I'm really glad you brought that up, Elvis. And I know I'm not in the sports management field, but you know, mentoring applies across the board. And I think sometimes there's that fear of reaching out. You know, so one thing I just want to add to that is like, if you don't hear back or you don't get a response back, don't let that discourage you from continuing to reach out to more people. Because I've recently experienced that just now. I'm part of the SUNY Hispanic Leadership Institute right now, and I have to reach out to find a mentor. And I reached out to 3 people before I had someone respond to me. There was no response at all after weeks, you know? And like sometimes that happens, you know, you can't, it's not you, it could be just that they're busy or it went to their spam, you never know. But use LinkedIn, use your network. Don't let it discourage you from continuing to build your own network.
I was about to say, you should have like a set touch point process on each person. I know in sales we have like probably like 10 touch points. So if I got one of you guys' number in my system, I'm probably annoying the heck out of you. But on like a serious note, like you should have that introduction email or introduction LinkedIn message. If they don't respond to that, you should have the, hey, sent this over your way. Pretty sure you're busy. It's a little gem, so y'all might want to write it down. Busy. Wanted to shoot you over another note, and then you should have like we call it like a breakup email. So it's basically saying, hey, was wondering if you'd be able to help me out with so and so. Understand you're busy. Reach back out to me whenever you're free or so on. Leave your number, leave your email. Guarantee you somebody's going to respond to, if not the first one, not the second one, the third one, because they're going to feel like, oh, snap, like I neglected this person oh so long. I have to reach out now, kind of thing, especially if you're sending it to an alumni.
Also, to kind of go off of networking, you never know who you can network with that can bring you opportunity. So, for example, like my Cornell internship that I got was not due to anyone in the sports management program. Actually, it was from one of the recruiters. Her name is Shannon for Cortland, and she ended up having the direct number to the athletic director. And I ended up getting an interview after I told her what I wanted to get an internship there, and I'm getting an interview the next week. That's somebody that has no sports management connection or anything. So that also shows you that no matter what job, no matter what program you're doing, always be aware of who you're talking to and always present yourself to the best as you can. Because I got an internship just because she knew me and she knew that I wanted to work in sport and I work hard and I was on a volleyball team, and that's how I got that. So also just think about that outside of just the sports management area, because you can get a lot of people that know people just from friendships there. So yeah, and then also when you finally get a mentor, be open to criticism and them helping you. I know that was something when I first Tim is one of my Tim. We have like a pretty good relationship, and he's somebody that I considered a mentor throughout Cortland. And one of the biggest things that I hate being criticized, but it was just him helping me with things from resumes to preparing for presentations to jobs and things like that. So being open to having someone tell you like, no, that's not it, and not taking it to heart like that means I'm such a horrible employee or person or I'm not good. It just means that I just need work. So biggest tip for that.
Any last minute thoughts? I wanted to wrap things up by 7:15. I really appreciate all the advice and everything the panelists have been giving. Y'all are amazing. And the people who are staying and hanging in with us, love it. Anyone have any last minute thoughts before Ryan take it away with the closing? Tim, I think I see your hand.
Yeah. I just have one not crazy, but one thing a challenge that I wanted to leave folks with. I sit down and think about complex issues in the world of sport management. Although I'm not in it, it's still within my heart. And so something that I wanted to leave with everyone, as we continue to have conversations about diversity in sport, one of the greatest challenges that you'll face as sport managers is understanding how to incorporate equity and fairness for the trans community. So if you think about trans folks, what sports can they play? And we've seen issues with trans women in the UFC because you have someone who is a male by sex, and so but they could fight with the women, and so it's like how do you incorporate folks from the trans community? If you can figure that out, if you can figure out how to incorporate the trans community or include the trans community in terms of organized sports, whether that's middle school, high school, college, you're set. And so that's something to think about, folks. It really is.
Can I add to that, Tim? And I think this might be open to alum also. We're having a transaction conference that the SOGI committee is putting on Friday, and our keynote speaker is going to be talking about, the keynote speaker played in was it National Sports Lima, and is going to be speaking about inclusion of the trans community within sports. So I don't know if the keynote has all the answers, but I think it's, if any of you or students, faculty, staff, alum are welcome to sign up. You can reach out. I can send you the registration link if you want. It's this Friday.
All right, Ryan, I'll have you take it away.
Well, hold on. I had another call to action, being as though I got the participants' names up. I challenge all of you that came out tonight to reach out to at least 3 people, whether it's alumni, industries in which you're looking to get into, whether it's LinkedIn, email. And again, I have everybody's name screenshotted here, so they'll definitely get a hit up for me checking. Again, I'm good with my touch point process. Hit up for me, making sure that they were able to reach out to these people. But again, reach out to whomsoever you'd like to, industry that you'd like to, and just start asking questions, build that relationship that way. When you're ultimately applying for something, it just makes that process much easier.
And my last piece of advice is for those who want to work in college athletics, and I know we tend to focus on the big brand schools, Ohio State, Alabama, Florida. Don't sleep on the Division III schools or the Division II schools, right? Working at the smaller level allows you to have an understanding of how an athletic department operates, right? You will gain experience in equipment operations, game ops, compliance, marketing, etc. The higher divisions you go, the more specialized you become, right? So I'm a big believer of Division III and Division II, and those experiences led me to where I'm at. And obviously, anything that I can do to help you all along the way, please feel free to reach out. I love me some Cortland. I love Cortland. Anything that I can do to help out, please feel free to shoot me an email.
Thank you, panelists. Ryan, I'll have you take it away.
Well, thank you guys again so much for a great discussion, insightful. I think us students, from our perspective, I think that we really appreciate this information coming from you guys, being alumni and just being so successful in your positions respectfully. It's just great to hear just the topics and just the insight you have on these certain things. So looking ahead, I wanted to bring up Casey Vaughn. She has some information on a future event coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah, well, first off, I would just like to say thank you so much for your time tonight. All the advice is greatly appreciated by us who are still in our undergrad and hope to, get jobs that you guys are all in right now. So like Ryan said, we will be hosting a Women's History Month panel on Monday, March 15th from 7 to 8 p.m. via WebEx. It's called What Does Equal Coverage Even Mean? So our guest speakers are all women who work in the sport media industry, and they will discuss the increasing coverage of women's sports and barriers women have had to overcome in the industry and still have to overcome today. This is going to be open to everyone, and we're really excited about our guest speakers. A lot of them are writers either for ESPN, The Athletic, podcast hosts, broadcasters. So we're really looking forward to this great event.
Yeah, so thank you again, once again. Thank you to Lima and Anna Maria for giving us this opportunity, and all the panelists. And to our club members, we will see you next week.
Thank you all. I'm so proud of you alums, especially seeing y'all on here. So enjoy the rest of y'all night. Ryan, I'll save the recording.
Everyone,
Send it.
bye.
Have a good one, guys. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you for having me.
I definitely